Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on Season 1 of The Simpsons. Now, as you know, The Simpsons has been around for quite a long time, lasting for 32 seasons, and personally I wanted to go right back to the beginning, back when The Simpsons first started out. And what's actually interesting is, with the first season, 13 episodes were produced, lasting from December the 17th, 1989, all the way to May the 30th, 1990. And what's actually interesting is that originally the episode Summer Chat Evening was supposed to be the first episode, but due to animation and that, which was considered poor at the time, that 70% of it had to be redone. Now, pretty much I would say the first season of The Simpsons was when The Simpsons was still trying to find itself, and there were a lot of early ideas, like, for example, in the opening, you have a totally different opening to the one we had up until they did the third opening. Like, for example, instead of Mr. Burns and Smithers being where Homer was working, it was a guy eating a sandwich. When you kind of had Lisa riding down to the house on her bike, that was slightly cut longer. And when you also had, like, in the season 2 opening, Bart skateboarding through a whole lot of people, instead it's changed to people waiting on the bus. And I would say what's interesting about the first season is some of the characters' personalities are completely different. For example, Homer is more the guy who's down on his luck, but still tries to be there for his family. Marge is meant to be less nagging, but still expects more from the family. Bart wasn't a complete over-the-top troublemaker, instead the normal bad kid. Lisa wasn't a complete SJW, and Maggie wasn't a kid with a dark secret. And what's actually interesting is, from the first season, you did notice a lot of different personalities, like Mr. Burns being slightly younger, and also less being made fun of. You had Ned Flanders, who was implied not to be religious at first, and you had Principal Skinners, who was a bit more like a serious principal and not a complete mama's boy. And what's actually interesting is Bart and Milhouse had two other friends who were also sort of like the extra friends that we wouldn't see from the other seasons. And what's actually interesting is you also do see Agnes Skinner, who they did change her personality to make her sound a bit more like a mean-spirited mum. And I would say what was interesting about the episodes, some of them actually had a moral or a bit of a lesson. For example, Bart the Genius, when Bart cheated on his intelligence test, and pretty much as soon as he gets there, it becomes clear the children at Bart's new school don't see him as intelligent. And there is a bit of a message about don't pretend to be something you're not, and that sometimes going the distance can become costly. Or when you've got the episode Moaning Lisa, when Marge tells Lisa to be happy, the moral of the story is don't enforce someone to be happy. It's okay to be sad, but it's also good to express it through music. And when you kind of got the episode The Telltale Head, when Bart cuts the head of Jebediah Springfield to impress Jimbo, Rolf, and Kearney, there is a bit of a message about not trying to impress people for the wrong reasons. And I think the messages were always there. And yeah, some of the characters from Springfield weren't completely flashed out. I think the only character we felt who got a bit of screen time for a story was Krusty the Clown, and was also meant to be the first appearance of Sideshow Bob. Krusty in this one was a bit different, as Krusty was a bit more joyful, a bit more happy-go-lucky, and wasn't portrayed as a sleazy sort of has-been actor, which I think was a better fit for Krusty. And I know there was some early productions from some of the episodes, so I know the production codes are meant to be correct. I do have a theory that some of these episodes were back in the 1989 run, so when they were trying to do them, it kind of hints some of them were either took longer to do, as you notice some early designs with Mr. Burns' office, the Quickie Mark, and some impliements that Patty and Selma live somewhere far from Springfield, so implying that originally they were meant to be somewhere else, according to the first episode, roasting on the open fire. And I would also say what was interesting about the first season was most of it didn't need to go on wacky adventures. It was more adventures you could kind of relate to. Again, if you were someone like Bart wanting to impress people, then yeah, you had the telltale head. Or if you were someone wanting to sort of help the family do better, then you were Homer sort of wanting what was best for the family in the episode No Disgrace Like Homer. And the episodes always had this straight moral story that I think the later seasons seem to forget. I think this was before PC culture, before Matt Groening and the others lost their way and stopped acting like what The Simpsons should have been. I think my overview thought on the first season is it's a bit of a hit and miss, but I think it's still enjoyable and still can get a few laughs. So I think the first season deserves a thumbs up. Still good and still alright. So, Comic Reviewy here, signing out.